Okay, so I have the privilege of asking the first question. There are many factors that contribute to policymaking. To what extent should scientific evidence inform policy? And are there policy areas where scientific evidence should have a greater role?
Well, thank you. And I know you wanted to have about 5 minutes for each question. Are you going to give me a warning when we're close? Would somebody give me like, you'll give me like a 4-minute warning, something like that?
Yes.
That'd be great. Well, I just want to say thank you to all those who organized this or attended. It's a crowded, beautiful fall afternoon and game day, and there's a lot going on. So I really appreciate being here, and I know that you are here because you care about the future of our country, this region, and you're dedicated to your profession and turning best practice and best available science into public policy is a really exciting pursuit. And so and it's fun to be here because my son went to high school, as did my husband. So great to be back. So when you ask about what role should it play, of course, public policy research should be based on sound science as well as, in my opinion, a public health approach to many of our very pressing social problems. However, having had 20 years of experience in the legislature, I can tell you that it's not enough to be right because you have to have the votes in order to pass a piece of legislation or get something included in a budget. And that's why what you're doing here in terms of talking about how to improve the relationship between scientists and public policymakers is such an important endeavor. And there are many avenues in which science and the latest research can come into the public policy arena, starting with having people as young as possible engaged in understanding what it really means when researchers come up with results, and knowing that it's never final, it's an ongoing process of continuing to explore and utilize new analytical tools as well as data to inform both the questions we ask and the answers that we come up with. So having that more significant understanding among the general public, which our science teachers do in the K-12 system, is really fundamental. Because otherwise I think it's easy for people to be misled by one scientific study, maybe not understanding the role that one study might play in the overall process. But more importantly, there are avenues both for advocacy, such as you're doing here today when you're questioning candidates and elected officials, but also in the public policy process, our federal and state and nonprofit and private institutions are really significant in terms of the kind of information that they can provide to the public policy making process. I guess the most important thing I'd like to impart is that sometimes the public policy making process takes a lot of time. You might think, well, I'm presenting this really good evidence to a public policy maker, and then they are either ignoring it or doing exactly the opposite of what I think they should be doing. And what I would say to that is it's important to understand both the science and research behind policy, but also to understand the political process and how different forces come into play to make things happen in public policy. And frankly, today we have to talk about money in the public policy process because there is such a wave of money coming in to affect campaigns, and also in some cases a bit of a revolving door between public policy, between elected officials and lobbyists who are trying to convince those elected officials of different public policy stands. And so looking at that big picture is really important. So bottom line for me is The ideal world of evaluating the evidence and assuming that that's going to naturally flow into public policy is not the world we live in. We live in one in which a variety of interests with a variety of motives are trying to impact what either does or doesn't happen, and having an understanding of that process is really important. And you can advocate as a professional and be very effective in doing that, and I appreciate that you're doing that here today.